For those of you that know me, know that I love watching sports. While most of my attention goes to college football and basketball, I do check scores from the NBA regularly, enjoy watching the NFL on Sundays, and try to keep up with major professional golf and tennis events. I am one of the millions of people in the world that calls him or herself a sports fan. The purpose of my speech is to explore the social, emotional, mental, and physical effects associated with being a sports fan. We all know the people that are so emotionally attached to their teams that when they are winning, they're completely obnoxious, and when their team is losing, they become depressed or angry. I will be the first to admit that this is the kind of fan I am. Anyone that has watched a Georgia football or Virginia basketball game with me can attest to this as well. Being such an intense fan can raise stress levels and lead to unclear thinking and poor decisions. For some people, this can lead to dangerously high levels of alcohol consumption and betting foolish sums of money on one's favorite team. Studies have also linked reckless driving, heart attacks, and domestic violence to the outcome of sporting events. While being a diehard fan like myself can lead to dramatic mood swings, high blood pressure at tense moments of the game, and a decrease in testosterone after a loss, it has been shown to be linked to higher levels of happiness and well-being in one's social life, as well as lower levels of loneliness. Sports psychology professor Daniel Wan of Murray State University explains that there are two routes to feeling good through sports fandom. Quote, one would be following a successful team, and the second would be simply identifying with them. You can get these well-being benefits even if your team doesn't do well. We found this with historically unsuccessful teams as well, end quote. Being a fan gives you a sense of built-in community. Being a fan of a sports team can give even complete strangers something to bond over. For instance, while on a ski trip in Colorado during Christmas break, my family, the Laniers, and another family that's close to ours went into a restaurant at the resort. It was New Year's Day, and some people were sitting at the bar yelling at the TV because Michigan was playing Alabama. We overheard some people at the table behind us make a comment about how obnoxious Big Ten fans are, and our entire table quickly struck up a conversation with these people that were Ole Miss fans simply because we believed that the football played in the Southeast was better than the football played in the North Midwest. There were many times on the trip that someone would shout out, "Go Dogs," because of the Georgia football jersey that I was wearing. Because of being a sports fan, I was able to bond with multiple complete strangers on the opposite side of the country just because we believed that our team and our region was best at playing football. There are not many other things that can give strangers such a strong sense of community. This sense of community brings people together in some cases from all over the world just to experience this community while watching one's favorite team play in person. This sense of community boosts fans' sense of well-being and gives them a greater self-esteem, and often helps them to feel less lonely and depressed. It is the knowing or feeling that you are part of a larger community that makes you feel less lonely and has long-term positive effects. Fandom gives sports enthusiasts a common language. Being a fan of a team can help bridge major age gaps. Sports is a great way to make connections with people from older generations. Discussing and comparing players and teams from those of the past is a conversation that I always found interesting to have. Also comparing certain rule changes with sports over the years, like the targeting rule in football, or how today's practices are more closely regulated by leagues across the country than they used to be, can also unite generational fans. Fandom creates a safe space. Fandom allows for people that are usually bottled up and reserved to let out their energy and emotions. The excitement of the game often brings out the side of the person that you never realized they had. Because of this, some fans are so deeply invested in their team when they suffer a heartbreaking defeat, this can lead to, heartbreak. This can lead to grown men crying and sweet little women swearing like sailors after a devastating loss. But because of each individual's investment in the team, this creates a space where these kinds of reactions are perfectly okay. And I, for one, do not judge those that react this way to a heartbreaking loss. Having a winning team can lead to healthier eating habits, while having a losing team can lead to poor dietary decisions. According to a study published in Psychological Science in 2013, fans were found to eat healthier after their team won. Two researchers compared 2 seasons worth of NFL games and food consumption in more than 24 cities. In cities that had a losing team, they found that people ate 16% more saturated fat on Monday than they usually did. And in cities with a winning football team, they found that people ate 9% less saturated fat than they normally did. These trends were still the case when non-football fans were included in the sample. Similar results were recorded when performing the same study on French sports fans as well. Being a sports fan allows for others to experience a sense of success. When your team wins, you win. Often I've found myself or others saying, "We won" or "we lost," depending on the outcome of their favorite team's game. While often the person that I was speaking to was not actually on the team, he feels as though he was a part of the success of the team, and this therefore gives him a sense of accomplishment or failure depending on how the team performed. A study performed in 1998 showed that male spectators at sporting events had similar increases and decreases in testosterone as the players, an increase of about 20% for fans of winning teams and a decrease of about 20% by fans of losing teams. A professor at Arizona State University came up with the terms Berg and Korf, which reflect how fans of teams react depending on the outcome of sporting events, and I admit that I'm guilty of both. Berg stands for basking in reflected glory. This describes the intense pride that fans feel due to the success of their team. The latter, Korf, stands for cutting off reflected failure. This occurs after a disappointing loss and a fan distances him or herself from their team until they've gotten over the loss. These two acronyms help explain the cognitive bias in which fans come up with excuses such as blaming the refs or anything else they can think of other than their own team's poor performance to explain why they lost the game. This is how I felt on January 1st, January 8th, March 16th of 2018, and April 8th of 2019. As many of you know, the first 2 dates have a strong correlation with each other, as did the last 2. January 1st, 2018, at the time, was the greatest sense of pure joy that I had ever experienced. Just about 1 month prior to this date, the entire Owen side of my family had made the decision that the 15 of us would travel across the country to experience the Georgia Bulldogs' first ever appearance in the college football playoff and their first Rose Bowl game appearance since 1942. After trailing by 17 points just before halftime, the Bulldogs stormed back in the second half to knock off Baker Mayfield's Oklahoma Sooners. In overtime, 1 week later, the Bulldogs headed to Atlanta to face Alabama in the national championship. And sadly for the Bulldog faithful, this game went quite the opposite way. After falling behind by 14 points, the Tide made adjustments at halftime, and Tua Tagovailoa entered the game and led Alabama back to a 3-point win in overtime. The first set of dates, clearly for me, went from an all-time high to all-time low. The event that occurred on March 16, 2018, did not make me feel any better about the Dogs' defeat in the national championship. I laid face down on the floor of my room that night with all the lights off. In pure shock, disbelief. I felt that the world was falling down around me as the unimaginable had taken place. A 16 had beaten a 1. The number 1 overall seed, Virginia Cavaliers, in the NCAA tournament had fallen to none other than the University of Maryland Baltimore County Terriers. This was the first and only time that a 16 seed had ever beaten a 1 seed. The game was tied at 21 apiece at halftime, and I thought, surely we'll win again. Surely we will not be the first team to lose to a 16 seed. But I was wrong. As the Cavaliers trailed by double digits late in the second half, I walked away from the television and isolated myself for the rest of the night. Had the events in the NCAA tournament this past year not had happened, the Cavaliers' loss to UMBC would still haunt me. It bothered me for over a year, and when Virginia trailed to Gardner-Webb by double digits in the first round, I began to have the same feelings sweeping over me. I was in a terrible mood and unable to think clearly or have any kind of pleasant interaction with anybody during that tennis practice while the game went on. I felt and looked like a zombie walking around out there, but the Cavaliers did not repeat history and were able to come back to knock off the 16 seed Gardner-Webb. This game was followed by the Cavaliers knocking off the Oklahoma Sooners in relatively comfortable fashion and then defeating the Oregon Ducks in a low-scoring, nail-biting affair. This had the Cavaliers in the Elite Eight, This game contained a shot that no Virginia basketball fan will ever forget.
He secured it. 2-point game. Jerome. Short. Back to Diakite. A race for it. Into the hands of Clark. Got a chance to win it here. Up the front. Here's Diakite for the win. From the tie. Diakite squares it at 70.
The Cavaliers would go on to defeat the Boilermakers in overtime. In dramatic fashion, the Cavaliers beat the Auburn Tigers in the national semifinals with much thanks to Kyle Guy's 6 points in the closing seconds of the game, including 3 free throws with less than 1 second remaining on the clock. With a run like this, winning the national championship was inevitable for Virginia as they claimed their first title in basketball, defeating the Texas Tech Red Raiders in overtime. Both are prime examples of basking in reflected glory and cutting off reflected failure. I've told you about the worst time I cut off from reflected failure, and I'm still basking in reflected glory as I'm literally standing here telling you all that Virginia won the Natty. These are the most extreme examples of how being a sports fan has emotionally impacted me, but every game is the same. I, along with millions of other fans, am still deeply invested in every game that my teams play. And the end is the sense of community that uplifts our spirits. This type of fandom can be found in other things like Star Wars, but there's a difference in being a sports fan and a fan of a TV show or saga like Star Wars. The Star Wars saga doesn't change. You can watch it over and over again, and the outcome of the film will still be the same. This is not the case with sports. Every season, every game, and every play in a sports game has a different outcome, and this is the part of the reason why fans love it so much. I'd like to end with a quote that Virginia's head coach, Tony Bennett, got from a TED Talk. It goes, quote, "If you learn to use it right, the adversity, it can buy you a ticket to a place that you couldn't have gone any other way." Thank you.